Various way. During the Crusades, as the Crusaders came marching through the land, they came here to Bethel or Bethel. Is this the exact spot of the city that became known as Bethel after Jacob was here? We don't know. The Jews here, who actually are the Orthodox Jews, who are the caretakers of this site, will tell you absolutely yes. Do you say, do you know that, or do you only believe that? They will say, we don't know the difference. So, was it? Well, we don't know. Somebody says that it was in this village over here, and there are ruins of a village over there. Further on, you have a hill in that direction over there with some towers on it. Right over there was a place called Ai, or Ai. We can't go there. It's in Palestinian Authority. It's a really bad idea for us to try and go in there, but it's just off the highway. Oh, one more thing. You remember in the Bible that Abraham pitched his tents as he was coming into the land between Bethel and Ai. That means he pitched his tent somewhere right down in here and lived in this area for a while. This is an amazing place. Is it an exact spot? There's no way of knowing anything like that. But here's the legend. As the Crusaders were coming through here, one Crusader said, I found the rock on which Jacob laid his head and anointed. And it followed the children of Israel around in the wilderness. Now that was a metaphor, and Paul explains that, but they took it as literal. This rock chased them around while they wandered in the wilderness. So they gathered up the rock and they took it back to Scotland eventually, where it became known as the Stone of Scone. S-C-O-N-E, like scone, except it's pronounced Scone. It also became known as the Stone of Destiny. And they have, somebody made actually quite a comical movie about a real event that involved that stone. Well, the stone was then stolen from Scotland and brought to England by King Edward the Longshanks. If you ever are familiar with the story of William Wallace, I don't know if you saw the movie. I can't recommend it one way or the other, but in the movie, William Wallace gets mad because they kill his wife. In real life, he got mad because someone stole the Stone of Scone. That doesn't make for a very good plot point, so they changed it. But that's why he got mad. And that stone was placed under the coronation throne, which is in Westminster Abbey, so that when the kings and queens of England sat on the throne to be crowned, they were being crowned king of the empire, but they were sitting on the authority of God. The stone from the Holy Land. Was it the exact stone? Are you kidding me? Look around, pick one, right? But that's what they did. And eventually, we would go and visit it on our Israel tours when we would take a trip that came through London, and we'd go look at it. We'd go into Westminster Abbey, and there it is right underneath the coronation throne, and we tell the story. And then they gave it back to Scotland a few years ago, and the box is empty. So Scotland has it once again after all these centuries. Happy day. Now I'm going to switch gears, and we're going to come back to this stone. Some of you are familiar with a man named Ravi Zacharias. And I want to give credit, sure, where credit is due. He told a remarkable story one time that was a real eye-opener about life in the Middle East, South Asia, and even the Far East, but especially in the Middle East and South Asia. And that includes here. One day, Ravi Zacharias was invited back to his home city where he was born in India. And they had a great big celebration to honor this minister who had become so famous and became so elevated in his education from this small little village there in India. And they put up a great big pavilion, and they invited hundreds of people, and he sits down there as the guest of honor, and the MC gets up and begins to introduce Ravi Zacharias. And for 10 minutes, this man gushed and gushed and gushed about all the achievements and the wonders and the jobs and the work that Ravi's dad did. And for 10 minutes, it was all about Ravi Zacharias' father, and he goes on and on and on until finally he says, now, let me introduce you to his son, Ravi Zacharias. And the place goes wild. You say, why in the world did they do that? Because every great person in the Bible, and in this region, by the way, especially among the Arab culture has preserved these regional cultures from thousands of years ago, cultures that the Jews were involved in. So remember, they're not all Jewish culture. They're preserved by all kinds of people. Well, they do the same thing. And the Jews did it too in Jesus' day. That how great the Father was how great the Son was. And if the Son was great and honorable, the Father went by the Son's name. Have you ever heard of somebody who goes by the name of Abu something? Fill in the blank. How about Abraham? Abu Ham. Avi, our bus driver. Avraham. Abu, Avi, Ab, all means the father of. If you have an honorable son, you go by his name if you're the father. When he sort of graduates to manhood and he's acted honorably, you are no longer whatever your name was. You are Abu, Avi, Ab, whatever, and your son's name. Isn't it interesting? That's why you have all these names like Abinadab or Abimelech in the Bible. He's the father of the king, Abimelech. You've heard that before. And so forth. Now, with that in mind, an incident happens that wasn't here. It was another place where we happened to be, up in that general direction. And it's covered for us in, of all places, John 1. And it's already been mentioned, but let's read this little part here. Let me find the right spot here. There we go. John chapter 1, verse 43. You say, what does that have to do with Bethel? Everything. The following day, Jesus wanted to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now, Philip was from Bethsaida, we drove right by it, the city of Andrew and Peter. And Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found the one whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" And Philip said to him, "Come and see." Now, part one. Can anything good come from Nazareth? Philip just introduced Jesus without showing him Jesus. Jesus is about to show up to Nathanael. He says, "We found the Messiah. We think it's him. Jesus, Yeshua, the son of Joseph of Nazareth." Now there's a problem with this. His name is Yeshua. Half the boys in Israel's name was Yeshua. That's like saying, you know who he is? His name is Bob. Same effect. That's not a Messiah's name. A Messiah's name will be great and lofty and important. Yeshua? Jesus? Of Nazareth? Of where? Come on now. Nazareth, the Messiah we know isn't going to come from some place like that. It's going to be a regal place. He's going to be born, yeah, in Bethlehem, but he's going to come from Jerusalem or some great palace or something. Oh, he's got to be great. Nazareth? A dozen families and they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't even have a wall. Are you kidding me? The son of Joseph. Who? He's got to be the son of Moses or David or somebody. The son of who? Here's the problem. Jesus has no pedigree. The Messiah's got to have a pedigree. Every great man has to have a pedigree like Ravi Zacharias' father. He has a great pedigree, and therefore he has a great son. There's a pedigree. Do you see what's happening here? Now it goes on. Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, so Philip's got him in tow, and said to him, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit." Now, big deal. What's the thing about that? Well, here's the deal. It's a pun. It's a play on words. When Jesus says, here is a true Israelite in whom there is no deceit, he's saying to Nathanael, here is a true son of Israel in whom there is no, are you ready? Jacob. What's that all about? Well, we'll find out here. But you remember Jacob's name means heel catcher. You guys remember what heel catcher means? Supplanter, manipulator, or in the great words of Gail Irwin, dirty, sneaky thief. Here is a true Israelite, one who is ruled by God, or even struggles with God. To struggle with God, you got to be ruled by him. So it's a good word. It's a great name. It's a great name to describe Israel and the Israelites, as you can tell by reading the Bible. But Jacob was a supplanter, a manipulator, dirty, sneaky thief. So here is a true Israelite in whom there is no Jacob. Nathaniel, you have a pedigree. You have a good pedigree. You're known. I know you. Now this gets Nathaniel's attention. And Nathaniel says, how do you know me? Like, you know my pedigree? How do you know me? But he's talking more about character, isn't he? A true Israelite, someone who is ruled by God rather than someone who is crooked. And Nathaniel answered him, Jesus answered and said to him, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Now, we don't really fully understand what Jesus was saying, but it sure made an impression on Nathaniel. It was something that Nathaniel understood, something that he related to, and we can argue this till the cows come home and never come up with a definitive answer. But either way, Nathaniel's response was, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. You're him. So whatever it was that meant to Nathaniel, it blew his mind. But then Jesus said this, because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these. And he said to him, most assuredly, I say to you, hereafter you shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. What's that all about? It goes back to the Old Testament. It goes back to Jacob. It goes back to Israel. It goes back to a pedigree. It goes back into the authority of God. Nathaniel is thinking, who is this guy that Philip says, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph, no pedigree? Jesus just told him, I got a pedigree, and it's bigger than you can imagine. You're going to see the angels of heaven ascending and descending upon me. Well, wait a minute. What does Nathaniel hear? What's going through his head? Now, let me tell you part 2. Here's the story. Jacob is down past Beersheba, in the Beersheba area. He's down there in the desert. Isaac is his father. Jacob and his twin brother Esau are living there with Isaac. Isaac is now very old and he's gone blind. Esau is about to get the blessing of the firstborn. Jacob and Esau are twins, but guess who was born first? Esau. Esau has red hair and lots of it, and he was born that way. He's just a hairy dude. Now, he has heard from Isaac, we're going to have a great feast, and I'm going to bestow my blessing upon you. And so Esau goes out to hunt, because Isaac says, bring my favorite kill, and we're going to have a barbecue, and I'm going to lay hands on you and give you the preeminence, the patriarchy of this household, and I'm stepping back. Well, God had already promised that it was going to be Jacob who was going to do this. He promised his mother. His mother passed it on to Jacob. Rebekah tells Jacob, this is bad. So she says, we've got to do something before Esau gets back. So she hatches a plot. She's also kind of as crooked as the day is long. And she arranges to cook up a really, really good feast. Go kill a goat real quick. Skin the goat. Make wrappings for your arms and the back of your neck so that you will feel and smell like Esau. Oh boy. Esau was not only hairy, but it appears he smelled like a goat. I'm serious. And then put on Esau's clothes so you have that smell on him. And then I'm going to cook up your father's favorite meal here, and then we're going to serve it to him, and when he says, come forward, say, I am Esau. And this is what happens. And Jacob goes up to Isaac, and Isaac says, come closer, my son. because he's about to steal the blessing he wants to give to Esau. Even though it's rightfully Jacob. Jacob should get the blessing. God said so. The patriarchy of the family. It's going to be Jacob who is going to bring forth through his family all the tribes of Israel and all Israel itself. This is the one where now the population of the Israelites begin to spread. It's going through Jacob. But Esau's the one who's going to get the blessing. Rebekah says, And so Jacob dresses himself in these goat skins. She cooks him a nice meal. And then Jacob approaches Isaac, and Isaac can't see him. And he says, you sound like Jacob. Come closer. And he can smell him. He puts his hand on his hairy arm because he's got that fresh goat skin on there and on his neck, and it's hairy. And he goes, well, it smells like Esau and it feels like Esau. So he puts his hand onto Jacob and he blesses him. And now the family name, the family fortune, the family priesthood, the patriarchy is now passed from Abraham to Isaac and now Isaac to Jacob. That's a pedigree. And then Esau returns sooner than expected. And he comes in and says, Father, I found your favorite kill. We're preparing it now. Let's do the blessing. And it said, Isaac began to shake because he realized what he had done. It wasn't the fact that he had laid hands on the wrong son. It was the right son. But his intention was to defy God and lay hands on the wrong son. And God caught him on it. But here's the deal. Jacob and Rebekah, they went ahead of God's plan. And they stole the blessing even though it was still rightfully his. Do you see the problem here? He didn't have to do anything. They weren't waiting for the Lord. They said, no, this is going to be bad. So, Esau makes a vow. I'm going to kill my brother. The moment I find him, he's dead. Rebekah hears this and says, Jacob, get out of here. Leave now. Go to my brother Laban. Now this is at least a month's journey. He's got to go north through this direction and arc up through Turkey and then south down into Mesopotamia to find Laban's house. He's got a long way to go, but she says, get out of here now or he's going to kill you. And he would. And so Jacob leaves. He never sees his mother or father alive again. And he passes probably within 2 to 3 days from Beersheba right through here. Now, he's a man who is wanted. He doesn't want anybody to know that he's around or where he's going, so he stays outside the villages. So wherever the village or the city of Luz, L-U-D, Lutz, wherever that was, he wasn't concerned about sleeping inside. He's outside. He's camping. Like here. Here, for sure? No. But like this, around here. Maybe here. Somewhere near here. And as he's outside, he pulls up a rock under his head or a pillow, and he goes to sleep. And he has that dream that God gives him, where he sees what we call Jacob's ladder. A ladder which was actually a stairway. Somebody suggested that Josh, who was behind the camera, play Stairway to Heaven while we're there, but no, I don't think so. Maybe somebody's tried, but not today, okay? It's a stairway of the type that because of the wording and the idioms there, like you would see sending up a ziggurat, or basically one of those pyramids that the Babylonians made. It's a mighty stairway that ascends up into heaven. This is what he's seeing. And angels, messengers from the Lord, doing God's will on earth and in heaven, going back and forth on this, which is what Jesus said, I'm the stairway. I'm the ladder. They're ascending and descending on me. He is the bridge between God and humanity, and he's from the Father, who God is at the top of the stairway. And Jesus credits himself that way. Nathaniel, that's my pedigree. I'm the Son of God, Nathaniel. I am God, Nathaniel. Now, he couldn't quite grasp that, but that's exactly what Jesus told him. Part 2 of part 2. Now, Jacob goes away to Laban's, and he stays there for 20 years or so, and then finally he comes back this direction. He's on the other side of the Jordan River as he's coming back down into the land, fleeing Laban because he kind of cheated Laban on the way out the door. And suddenly he learns from one of his messengers, because he's got a huge number of sheep, huge number of flocks and herds with a huge number of people attending them. It's like a whole city on the move. He's a very wealthy man. And he learns that Esau's coming. This is bad. Esau's learned about him, and Esau's got a private army with him. This is even worse. Jacob panics. He sends splits his herds, his flocks, his attendants, his family. He sends half of them down there to meet Esau in waves, to kind of appease him, to send him peace offerings or whatever. Eventually shows Esau his family, sends that ahead like, I'm a family man. You're not going to kill my family. These are your nephews and your nieces and your cousins. No, don't touch them. And he's trying to soften Esau up to keep Esau from killing him. And Jacob is left alone on the other side of the Jordan, not very far from here. Off the river Jabbok, and by the way, we're probably going to drive on that water course, or near it anyway, but there's a little village called Peniel. And Jacob is left alone at night. You know the story. A guy shows up and says, let's wrestle. Now, Jacob is not a young man, but people in those days had to be tough and hardy, and of course, they tended to live longer, so he's really strong. And he starts wrestling with this man. Now, I've wrestled before, but I am no wrestler. I had to wrestle the fat kid, David Prado, in my high school because we were the two least athletic kids in the course. And man, when David Prado and I wrestled 3 rounds, we finally, in the middle of the 3rd round, were laying flat on the mat like this because it's hard to wrestle. I mean, we were exhausted. Jacob wrestles with this guy all night, and he starts to win. Now, that's fascinating to me because the other guy has an infinite advantage. And finally, as Jacob starts to win, the other guy reaches up and just touches his hip. Boing! It pops out of the socket. And because of the word that's used, it seems to indicate damages his sciatic nerve. Any of you guys got sciatica? Holy mackerel, that hurts. And Jacob goes straight to the ground. And he realizes who this person is. He's the angel of the Lord. Now, the angel of the Lord isn't Michael or Gabriel. When the angel of the Lord shows up in the Old Testament, it's almost always God. How so? Jesus before he became Jesus born of a woman. This is an Old Testament appearance of the Lord. And the Lord was allowing Jacob to win. You almost beat me, Jacob, but you never can. And you never will. You can try. You can think you're beating me. You can think you're prevailing. You think you're going to pin me. You'll never do it. Pop! And he was crippled for the rest of his life. And Jacob grabs on to the angel of the Lord's feet. Because he's on the ground. And he says, I won't let you go until you bless me. Now, I've heard all kinds of things where this is the way that you ended a wrestling match, that the winner has to bless the loser with the gifts and all of that. Not here. Jacob knows what's going on. He had stolen the blessing that was still rightfully his. But he had stolen it, so it wasn't legitimate. Esau's coming to collect on him. Probably kill him. It turns out that wasn't the case. Esau was very friendly because he missed his brother, and that was a good thing. But that's beside the point. Jacob doesn't know that. And he says, I won't let you go until you bless me. I need the blessing for real. And then comes the $1 million question. The angel of the Lord looks down at Jacob, writhing in pain, but grabbing onto his leg, and he says, what is your name? And Jacob, I don't know if he wept or not, but he says, dirty, sneaky thief. And the Lord says, not anymore. From now on, your name is Israel, because you have struggled with God, and now you're ruled by him. And you'll find in the Bible that Israel as a nation is often called Jacob. That's when they're doing poorly. and Israel, and that's when they're doing well. God reminds them of their past and their pedigree. That's the story. But wait, there's one more part. Part 3. Part 3 is this. That, in fact, God gives you, me, his people, a pedigree now. We are his. We're born again. We're ruled by him. And he is known by us. You say, that's really bad. What do we do? What do we think? What do we say? How do we treat people? And he's known by us. To the world, he is. That's a very, very troubling thought, unless you're walking upright with the Lord the whole time. But as we pointed out back at Tel Dan, God revealed something to Moses that was phenomenal. Once again, about his name. When he passed by Moses, he wouldn't let Moses see his face, but he would let Moses know him more intimately than anyone up to that point. When God passed by, and you know this because we said it before, when God said, "Here is my name, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, giving love to the 1,000th generation, forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin." You want to know what the name of the Lord means? That's what the name of the Lord means. It's in Exodus 34. You can look it up there yourself. The Lord's name isn't Bob. The Lord's name isn't Steve. The Lord's name is I am, the becoming one, and it starts with, what will I become to you? The compassionate God. That's how he starts. The gracious God. The God who is slow to anger and abounding, not just trickling, but abounding with love and faithfulness. Giving love to the 1,000th generation. Do you know how long 1,000 generations is? And forgiving the big one, wickedness. A bad one, rebellion. And just plain imperfection, sin. This is his name. This is his name. Now, I want you to notice something. I said it yesterday while we were at the South Temple steps. But there in the book of Numbers, chapter 6, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, this is the way you shall bless the children of Israel," not Jacob. "Say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace." But you know, we know that blessing. But the story doesn't end there, because the very next thing God says is this, and listen very carefully. He said, "So they, the priests, those that pronounce the blessing, shall put my name." The Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, giving love to the 1,000th generation, forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. "So they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them." And he has put his name on you, and you are called by his name. You have not just a royal pedigree, but a pedigree where God is your Father, which is why it's such a privilege to be able to say, as you heard prayed in Aramaic last night, "Our Father who art in heaven," because we are known by his name. And like any good father, an honorable father from this land, shockingly and surprisingly, he is known by yours. Because we have him, and he lives in us. And through us he expresses himself, the compassionate and gracious God, through you. slow to anger, God help us, through you. Abounding in love and faithfulness, through you. Giving love to the 1000th generation, through you. Forgiving wickedness, through you. Forgiving rebellion, through you. Forgiving sin, through you. Not the way Jesus did it. You know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. Forgiving others, through you. And we are known by his name. Let him be known by ours. Because we are like him and he makes us like him. He transforms us day by day from glory to glory into the image of Jesus. And all of that because a man had a dream somewhere around here, put his head on a rock. And Jesus said, now you see my pedigree. Now you know who my Father is, and now your Father too. Isn't that amazing? What a place this is to remind us of